All right. Greetings and salutations, everyone. Wonderful, wonderful to have you here today on live from NCCE. Welcome to everyone from around the world, because I know we have people from all over, because today we have the incredible, marvelous Mark Sparvel. And I don't know if you know Mark Sparvel, but Mark has been in education for what, Mark? About 25 years? 25 years, right?
25 years plus.
That's a long time. And he's an education leader with Microsoft. He's actually the one who founded the Showcase School. So that's a really great program. But more importantly, right now, Mark is a brilliant genius and just knows everything about SEL in EDU, which is his Facebook group that you've got to follow. And Mark is going to be talking today about what matters most. And I'm thrilled to be here. I met Mark. I got to hear him live, at BLC, Alan November's conference.
Yeah.
So I'm super excited today. So Mark, please tell us what matters most.
Wow. Thank you so much for the invitation, Tammy. And yeah, I'd almost completely forgotten about that event with Alan November. It seems like a million years ago. So g'day, everybody, and welcome to me coming to you live from Melbourne, Australia, where I'm currently on vacation, sort of trying to get back to America next week. Up in the top right-hand corner of the screen, in case I forget, just a quick promo flag for the next event happening on April the 8th, featuring great colleague and friend Michelle Zimmerman. You don't want to miss that one. If we're not following one another on Twitter, my handle's down below. Consider this to be an introduction and an invitation. It's an introduction to some thoughts around the significance of social and emotional learning right now. Why is it fundamental, not ornamental? And it's also an invitation to follow up with me using my email address down below at Microsoft. But to begin with, take this moment, an invitation just for a breath. Beautiful picture taken this morning of the sun rising in Australia, some eucalyptus trees, the southern sun nice and low in the sky. I'm really interested in this kind of notion of nature deficit disorder, and why it's so important for adults and children to be outside at times, to be connecting back outside and seeing outside. And there's a rising amount of interest around what's being termed loosely eco-psychology, and measuring the positive impacts of connecting with nature to allow us to calm down, to settle our busy thoughts. In Japan, some of you would have heard of, my Japanese isn't that great, Shinrin Yoko, which Shinrin means forest and Yoko means to bathe. So forest bathing is literally a thing, walking in nature and relaxing. A quick question for you to either think about, reflect upon, or you can post it on social, use the handle @Sparvel, #MicrosoftEDU. Just take a moment and think about something that's made you laugh or smile recently, something that somebody has done or said, something that you viewed and reflected upon. Kinds of questions that I start most of my lessons with, whether they're with adults or with children. And it's about resetting the mind. It's about reducing cortisol, the stress hormone. It's about increasing dopamines and oxytocin and adrenaline. It's about, if you like, biohacking the brain to prepare it for learning. So just think on that one. A little bit about me that I just want to quickly share so you know where I'm coming from. As Tammy mentioned, I've been an educator for a long time. Up in this top left-hand corner, I was teaching in remote Mataranka in Northern Territory. And what's important about this picture was it really taught me that students need to be and should be teachers. So the little kids in this clip are involved in a webinar, and they're teaching other kids about the march of the noxious cane toad as it marches its way across Northern Australia. So kids should be and can be teachers and should be skilled up to become teachers. Over in this next picture, I was a principal of a school that taught surfing. And what was important about this was I was a really bad surfer and really nervous. It was important for my students to see me as a learner, to see me modeling and doing the kinds of mindset and behaviors that we were asking for them to demonstrate. In this little clip here, I was teaching a group of students on a webinar. We were trawling a hydrophone beneath the waters off South Australia, between South Australia and Kangaroo Island, listening to bottlenose dolphins chatter with one another and talking with experts about the sex life of dolphins. What this taught me about was that learning should be open-walled. Expertise should flow in and flow out. The other pictures are just visits that I made on this trip in the last couple of weeks back to my old schools. And I was reflecting on the things that I'd learned. This man was my deputy for a number of years. He taught me that leadership is always through influence. And this lovely lady here was my front office. I called her the Director of First Impressions. And she taught me to listen and listen some more. And one of the other members of staff pulled out of their cupboard this gift I'd given them some 15 years ago that they'd kept. And I bottled up a little jar of water. And the message, it's hard to read now, says, in case of an emergency, open this jar, dip your fingers in the warm southern oceans and spend a moment just reflecting. So when people say to me, hey, it's great that you're just getting into social and emotional learning, I have to smile, because it's always been a part of what I do. You know, as educators, and I know, that schooling is an emotional roller coaster. Learning is a social process. It's something best done together, and therefore emotions matter. Tammy mentioned the group that I founded on Facebook. You can see the address at the bottom of the screen, Cell in Edu. We're close to 10,000 members. And this is a fully moderated environment partnered with Committee for Children, which allows us to bring together best practice and next practice around social emotional learning. Here's a couple of quick questions for you to ponder before we jump into the heavy stuff. Which animal bum is this? Is it a bulldog, a rabbit, or a guinea pig? Have a think about that. The answers are all going to be on social afterwards. Here's your next animal bum. Which animal bum is this? Now, the reason for showing these animal bottoms isn't just because, well, it's interesting, might make you laugh, might lower expectations, but laughter has also been shown to reduce cortisol levels and provide positive health benefits up to 45 minutes after a good laugh or a good smile. Even has been scientifically shown to improve immune responses. So there are a number of health benefits from laughter and joy. These things matter the most, especially in times when we're feeling stressed, when we're feeling overwhelmed, and when we're feeling anxious about what's happening. Let's jump into the stuff. In a talk, normally you'd be looking to provoke, you'd be looking to challenge or disrupt, but I think given the events of 2020, that's certainly not what we want to do. I'm going to give you the top findings of some new research. So if you like, what I'm going to do is my grand reveal of my talk. I've already shown you animal bottoms, so let's start at the back and work our way forwards. We've just finished a new piece of research with YouGov, 1,500 teachers and students across 3 countries. And if I was going to play my Captain Obvious persona, I would say this was the finding from those surveys. People miss people. People miss the social dynamics of the classroom and the social dynamics of the staff room. The other findings, and you'll be able to access all of these very soon, comes back to this fact that learning is inherently social. Every time we share ideas or resources, every time we listen to somebody, every time we question somebody and work and collaborate with them, we're engaged in social learning. And students across this survey certainly called out what they miss the most. I'm sure they miss your maths lesson, and I'm sure they miss the, the state standards and assessments, and I'm sure they miss all of those. What they really miss are the hundreds of micro social collisions that happen each and every day. That student who is kind to them in the bus line, the person who is the teacher who catches their eye and smiles and recognizes them. They miss the physical energy of places and spaces in the school, and they miss the dynamics of encounters that happen inside and outside formal learning. Students found challenging And this was the highest one, was this lack of active hands-on learning in remote learning situations. They were finding too much transmission and not enough active learning. The students said, we want our learning to be, we want autonomy, but we don't want our learning to be automated. So these were some of the findings coming through, but social learning came through strong. When I was asked in a TED Talk recently, what is it that really matters the most? These things haven't changed. Humans have a drive to be seen, to be heard, to be connected or have a sense of belonging, and to have some power and control. And when we're designing learning experiences for our staff or for our students, we need to ensure that everybody has an opportunity to be seen, whether it's asynchronous or synchronous. It needs to be invitational, not just instructional. People need an opportunity to be heard, to have their thoughts recognized, both formal and informal. When you listen to the fabulous Merrills talk about how they use Flipgrid to invite students into a digital playground just as a chance to talk and share without any constraint, that's being heard. Being connected and have a sense of belonging. The students said they needed more time with their one-to-one with their teacher, more small group time with their teacher, more small group time with their peers. That's that social connectedness. And to be empowered. Whether we call this voice, choice, and agency, students need some choice and they need some control over their learning. And they called that out in the survey, saying that one of the things many of them valued about last year was greater flexibility with time, greater flexibility about how and when they were able to show what they knew. So often we ask this question, and you can just think about this, how do you feel, as an emotional check-in? And I just want to share with you some other thoughts that I have about that. The other thought is asking people as a follow-up, or instead of, is how do you want to feel? Or how do you want to feel at the end of the day? Nobody enters, no kid enters their virtual classroom at the start of the day, hoping by the end of the day that they feel angry, upset, and frustrated. So asking people how they want to feel is as important as asking people how do they feel at the moment. And I'm sure this is familiar to all of you, but using some sort of organizer like the Yale Center for Emotional Intelligence mood meter really helps to develop that emotional granularity. That's that ability to recognize, understand, label, express emotions. So if you think about this, if I was going to place, well, how do I feel at the moment? I might choose over here, but how do I want to feel? Maybe that's different. And then the conversation and the reflection becomes, how do we move from one state to the other? What skills, what strategies have we used in the past that work? Who might be able to help us? Those sorts of things. This is all part of developing emotional intelligence. This is all part of actually developing a sense of control and efficacy, which matters greatly right now. So we know from the work in positive psychology and positive education that what we choose to place in our conscious mind flourishes. So when we start to think about how we may want to feel in a positive frame, then we start to run an app in the back of our brain, which looks for examples of how we might do this or how successful we are heading to this. So emotions matter. We know last year that educators were feeling anxious, uncertain, worried, stressed, and this was research undertaken by Yale and also published by Castle. When they dug into it, teachers were feeling stress for three main reasons. They were feeling a sense of professional loss, so that's that social disconnect from their own colleagues, the preventative factor of gossiping in the car park, talking to one another in the staff room, in the halls and corridors, engaging in happy hours. That's the stuff that was causing them, that was removing a protective factor. The other thing was teachers were stressed about workload and burnout. And the third thing was the fact that some students were doing more poorly than others. So the issues of equity were the things that were bothering teachers, because as we know as teachers, it has an emotional toil. When we asked teachers in that new survey, what did they need to know more about? What might help them as they navigate students across 2021, they talked about needing to know more about the complexities faced inside and outside the school, the emotional state of students, and also how motivation, what's driving the students to do what they do. And these are all really important because it comes back to this, emotions being the gatekeeper to the way that we process information, our cognition, where we choose to direct our most limited resources and motivation and our attention. Emotions are the gatekeeper to cognition, motivation, and attention. There is no academic success without paying attention to the emotional side of the house. And when we look to the brain and think about the last year, I was talking to a developmental molecular biologist asking about how has the developing brain been affected by 2020? And he said to me that the human brain is designed for stress. You know, stress triggers a emotional response, which triggers a behavior, fight, flight, or freeze. So the brain doesn't mind stress, but prolonged stress, toxic stress, is feeling out of control, and the brain hates feeling out of control. So everything we do for our students needs to be providing them with a greater sense of control, a greater sense of efficacy, a greater sense of connectedness. We know that when it comes to motivation, we can get students to do things, but compliance is a poor substitute for motivation. And motivation came through over and over again in the surveys as being the #1 issue. Teachers said, I'm struggling because my students aren't motivated. Students said, I'm struggling because I'm unable to manage distraction. I don't find the work compelling. I don't see the purpose behind it. So motivation came up big. For those of you that are a fan of John Hattie's meta-analysis involving studies that included over 300 million teachers, he looked at the 280 things that make a difference to learning. Lots of things can improve learning, but some things improve them more than others. #1 was the belief that a group of teachers hold that they can make a difference, their efficacy, which comes from their mindset, their confidence, their skill set, their emotions. If you look down to #4, student efficacy, the belief that a group of students individuals have that they can do well, that they are capable, their levels of confidence, and also their ability to recognize how they're going. So the more accurately students can self-assess, the more likely they are to succeed. So it's interesting because it comes back to how people are feeling. And as a bottom line, the good news is in the survey just concluded, hope is on the horizon. We're on the cusp of hope. Both teachers and students remained cautious, but indicated a greater level of excitement and optimism about 2021. Here's a sneak peek of exactly some of those results. So a doubling. When they looked back and looked forward, student and teacher optimism has just about doubled, which means people are feeling more confident that they can actually move positively forwards. Hope is on the horizon. And mindset matters here when we're working with students and teachers, flipping those questions in our own heads around, why is this happening to me, through to, what is this teaching me? And instead of, look what's no longer possible here, what we're lacking, missing, what's been damaged, where are the opportunities? What are the new things that we could be doing and trying? And this is important because we're in a blast zone that kicked off in 2020 and will continue for at least probably 3 years to see the impact of 2020 playing out. And one thing that we know are people who have got higher developed social and emotional skills are the people who are going to be able to navigate the complexity and the ambiguity that we're going to face over the next 3 years. Things like self-awareness, that ability to recognize your emotions, understand the links between emotions, thoughts, and behavior, self-management, it's our ability to regulate ourselves within social settings, social awareness, our ability to take perspective, to demonstrate empathy, relationship skills, so how we build and maintain relationships, and importantly, how do we make decisions from that? So people with these skills will be able to navigate that blast zone And we know that there's an increasing global demand for social and emotional learning skills. We know that between 1 in 5 of young people had mental health issues before the events of 2020. So how do we teach these social and emotional skills? There seems to be like 5 key things, and I'll show you some examples of those in action. One of those is we need to develop an emotional vocabulary. Another one is we need to provide feedback. Students need that. Students need an opportunity to practice and rehearse social and emotional skills. Students need to observe social and emotional skills in action. So technology can play a role in supporting this. And here are some quick examples in the last 10 minutes that I've taken from other people, which make a difference because, if we take from one person, it's stealing, but if we take from lots of people, then it's research. So here's the research. Getting social is really important, and Flipgrid video is a really awesome example for doing that. I mentioned the Merrills earlier on, and what's useful about this is that social learning at its essence is learning from other people, and video is a really powerful tool, both asynchronous and synchronous. Flipgrid is a powerful social platform because students can contribute 24/7. They can rehearse. They can use built-in features like read aloud to make it more accessible. And people like the Merrills use Flipgrid to set up their class virtual graffiti walls for students to share personal successes, interests, and aspirations. And I mentioned before, also set up a virtual playground so students could engage in just unstructured play. Epic group work can really be well supported within online environments, and Minecraft Education Edition is a really good idea here. Being able to work in groups is a really important life skill because students learn how to regulate, to negotiate with others, to develop leadership skills, to get an understanding of their strengths and areas to work on, and how they prioritize. And at the end of the day, contribute as part of a collective. And many of you would know that one of the free downloadable worlds for Minecraft Education Edition is Mindful Night, and it's an awesome environment. You can practice and rehearse a lot of those critical social and emotional skills: self-regulation, self-reflection, and social awareness. That's Mindful Night in Minecraft. Recognizing and rewarding is really important, and we're really delighted to set of social and emotional learning badges tied to the Big Five. It's an accepted psychological framework for character development. These are available in praise in Teams. They're available for free, obviously, in OneNote. You can snip and clip and use these in any of your digital environments to give really specific feedback around very specific character traits and behaviors. So rather than saying nice or well done, you can say, hey, Tammy, you demonstrated great curiosity today. Hey, James, I really liked how motivated you were to get this done. Hey, Damien, your self-management skills were rocking it out today. So the digital sticker pack, reward and recognize. Reflect, you got to check out the link aka.ms/reflect. It's in Teams at the moment. It's being released in an even better form. Here's a sneak peek just for you guys. This is a dashboard for teachers which allows teachers to push out polls checking on the emotional state of the classroom, but check out the amazing data that you're going to be able to get back. You're in control of the levels of accessibility and confidentiality, but over time, students will get a sense of how their moods are changing. And we know the word emotion literally means to be in motion. So this answers the big question, how is my class feeling? But importantly for the individual, they can realize that over time their emotions fluctuate. And eventually this data will be part of the insights information that teachers have within teams. So you can have both grading information over time, contributions, collaboration over time, and emotion over time. So the students will be over time be able to become more self-aware about how their emotions are affecting their cognition, their motivation, and their attention. A couple more quick opportunities. One is obviously learning with Microsoft. Up in the top left-hand corner, I've gathered my top 10 ideas from teachers around the world of how you can do something Monday, not someday, to build that emotional granularity, give and receive feedback, practice and rehearse social and emotional skills within tools which you already have. And if you don't have them, they're free as part of Office 365. We've got great coursework from Headspace. We've got mindfulness activities that you can dig around. Plus also, we mentioned at the start, there's the educator community on Facebook waiting for you to join and contribute. We've just updated our resource page 2 weeks ago. It's specifically about social and emotional learning approaches with partner resources, which is brand new, with brand new assets, with the links to Goldie Hawn's Mind Up series that you can use as part of your professional development. So I'd recommend that you check out that page. And also the research is really important, that what we do and say is grounded in evidence. So I would call out a couple of these that we've published: Emotion Cognition in the Age of AI, which is Wellbeing Global Research, and the Class of 2030 and Life Ready Learning. You might want to check that out too. Join the Microsoft Educator Center as well. So in wrapping up, for me, you saw at the start my journey of 25 plus years as an educator. Some things have never changed for me. The greatest potential, I believe, that technology has is to help us humanize the learning, to make sure that every learner is seen, is heard, is connected and matters, to provide them with voice and choice, and develop in them a sense of efficacy and competence. That's the potential that technology holds, not just to digitize the content, that's part of it, but humanized learning is certainly the aspiration. Remember, coming up soon on April the 8th, we have Michelle Zimmerman joining exactly in this format, talking to you live about the social dilemma and technology for good, which is going to be an awesome session. She's a great speaker. I'm going to stop there. I'm going to check back in the studio whether there's any questions coming through.
Everyone is incredibly excited about what you've been saying. They've all been saying, this is learning to lead. This is what we need to do in our classrooms. I think the biggest question is, how do you start? What would be the first thing that you would pick if you were a teacher to start integrating some kind of SEL in your classroom?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great question. And the research is really clear. The place for it to start isn't with the students. The place for it to start is with the educator themselves. In fact, even better, the leader of the school. But certainly as an educator, becoming skilled up, taking some of those courses that are available to get a sense of the significance of the topic, why it matters so much, but also what are those key social and emotional strategies that we have. The E-twins, Mario and Alberto Haraz, they were on a session with me yesterday, and they said the most powerful thing they could do on Monday was to actually acknowledge how they were feeling with their students and to plot that on a digital mind map and to be open and honest and say, we're feeling a little bit, low energy at the moment. So we're going to do this to bring the energy up. So I guess that would be my tip. My tip would be, when we teach ourselves. That's the starting point.
I'm just overwhelmed. That is such sage advice. We are so thrilled and honored to have had you here today. It was sparvelous to have you here with us. We so appreciate it. If you don't follow Mark on the Twitterverse, please do. It's at Sparvel with 2 L's. And be sure you follow his hashtag #Sparvelous, because he is. And we are so thrilled. We appreciate it. And Michelle, yes, Zimmerman will be here next week talking about AI. But Mark, thank you. And thank all of you, especially my friend Mohammed. Hey, Mohammed. Mohammed's from the UAE, and he always comes, and we're thrilled to have him. So everyone, have a wonderful rest of your week. Restful. Have a good laugh. Follow Mark, and we will see you next week. Thank you, Mark.
My pleasure. Thanks, everyone. Goodbye from down under.